So I'm going to talk about Tantra. I'm going to begin with an invocation. This is just something I learned from a teacher of mine. And part of what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite in the forces that want to help us to learn and just call upon them and call upon also the creative force of wisdom so that wisdom can descend. So I'll begin with the invocation and then I'll go. Om Ganana Tva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashavastamam Jyesta Rajham Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashvanutavisida Sadanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Anodivo Prihtav Parvatara Sarasvati Yajata Gantu Yagnyam Havam Devi Juju Shana Gritaji Shagman Nova Jamushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha Prano Devi Sarasvati Vajebhiv Vajanivati Dinama Vritravatu Anodivo Prihtav Parvatara Sarasvati Yajata Gantu Yagnyam Havam Devi Jujushana Gritaji Shagman Nova Jamushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha. And calling to the energy and the archetype that Ganesha represents, which is the energy of openness and removing the obstacles in our path from true learning. And also calling upon the energy of Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, the goddess of knowledge, creativity, and inviting that presence to be with us for our session as well. Tantra. There's no line over the A. Tantra. Short A's. Tantra. Please don't go to a class and say, I'm a tantric practitioner. Tantra. Tantra. It is an instrument of expansion. And as you can see, it is a very, very broad and loosely defined concept. And somehow in the Western world, we grabbed hold of the idea that it had to do with sex. And now there's yab yum workshops and tantric workshops of people doing tantra. Not saying that that's not tantra, because it is still an instrument of expansion, right? However, it is far removed from what it was originally intended as. I think one of the most fascinating things about it is based on what I found in my research and my own practices and also talking with my teachers, is that Tantra referred to basically a way of life. That it was just because we talk about the Brahminical caste system and the oppressive rule of Hindu and post-Vedic culture and in the turn from the Common Era, which was a common theme globally. Actually, there was this theme of what could we call it? The organizations that were oppressive. Catholicism. But the mystical truths of all great religions are still truths. So there's a mystical side of the surface. And so Tantra was sort of like the mystics, the people who were in culture and they observed that there were natural laws and there was wisdom embedded everywhere. And they wanted to go and they wanted to find their own ways to interact with that wisdom. And so the first text for Tantra emerged around 500 AD. And then we see a whole bunch of texts from 500 AD to about 1500 AD was like the main period of Tantra. There's more later on. Remember, Hatha Yoga comes inside of this umbrella because Tantra was very body positive. They were like, man, we love our bodies. We love everything is filled with divine Shakti. Everything is filled with this incredible presence. Like there's magic in everything. We don't want to transcend and escape. We want to learn how to integrate and be a part and weave with these realities. And so Hatha Yoga emerges out of Tantra, but so do a bunch of other very important practices to understand as part of this path, I think. And practices like, well, we'll get to actual practices when we talk about Duni and the fire ritual. But as you can see, the notable ideas from Tantra that on page 143, like the first concept of Shiva and Shakti. Shiva and Shakti. That duality is also real. That everything is one, and everything is, the Shiva and Shakti are both sides of this one coin. Shakti is Shiva concealed. Shiva is Shakti, Shiva is Shakti concealed, and Shakti is Shiva revealed. I'll say that again. Shiva is Shakti concealed. Shakti is Shiva revealed. So what does that mean? Our life is a work of art. We are creating what we see. Just by the act of perceiving it alone is an act of creating. And so as we create, as we perceive, we create. It is a divine act of art, if you could imagine. Who is it or what is it that is creating what you are perceiving? Is it you? Is it a part of you? Is it the ego? These are just thoughts that I have, inquiries. And these are questions that I ask myself in my practice. I do know, based on my own discovery and also cross-referencing with texts, that it appears that there's a witness in me. There's a conscious observer of my life. Do you see that in yourself? And then there's also the contents of your life. The two are distinctly different, and yet they are married together. They are inseparable. There can't be art without an artist. Right? And so this is the divine play, the Leela in Tantra. They talk about the Leela. And I think understanding the kind of the concept, like we can start to orient a little bit to the worldview that the Tantrics proposed. That, oh my gosh, I'm actually co-creating this whole reality. And another thing they said is, our bodies are microcosm of the macrocosm. So this is where understanding the 5 elements comes in: earth, water, fire, air, space. This is where understanding the planets comes in. Understanding the fact that all of our organs, all of everything that is in us is reflected in the macrocosm. And it's actually quite profound to think that you are mirroring everything. And that everything you see out there has its reference point inside. Shiva and Shakti. Another really, really important idea that the Tantrics brought into very much, well, now it's quite mainstream, but Kundalini. Kundalini. I'll try to do my best to, screw it, I'm just going to go there with Kundalini. We're going to see how this unfolds. Kundalini is a concept that the Tantrics used to describe the evolutionary energy. And another way to put that is, if you think about the fact and this is just an observable fact, I'm not making it up, when your system is slightly out of balance, there is a force that is trying to move you back into balance. As soon as you become slightly out of alignment, there is a force that is gently nudging you back. Can you feel that? Like there's something that's trying to get us to be in alignment with life. What is the thing that's moving you away from alignment in life? Any guess? It's one word.
The self. The lower self.
The lower self, the ego. And so the tantrics were like, how do we get this lower self to turn towards the supreme reality? And what even is the supreme reality? Like the concept of they just created a whole new view on it. Supreme reality. So there's this force that wants to move us back into alignment. You could call it an evolutionary force. I call it an evolutionary force. For me personally, the ego is the anti-evolutionary force. It can be evolutionary, but it's evolutionary when it's in alignment with the creator. It's evolutionary when it's in alignment with natural law. So Kundalini is this evolutionary force. It is seen in different mythological stories all over the world about the idea of dragons and serpents and these things that cause that consume us, and then there's a death and rebirth process. It's in so many different mythological narratives because Kundalini is explaining the process of a human soul on its spiritual journey. It goes through a death and rebirth. It is a process of entering the fire, being consumed by the fire, and coming out more purified, more rarefied, you could say. And so the tantrics, there's a really big idea that that Kundalini was the force necessary for transformation. And so they tried to align with it. They tried to prepare their bodies, which is where Hatha Yoga comes in, to align with this force so that they could actually sustain the higher voltage of Kundalini. Because again, it's this force that is evolutionary in us is what's actually motivating us to get up in the morning and do life. Like we're all being propelled by this Shakti according to this philosophy. And so there's the concept of we gotta awaken our Kundalini. And I think our Kundalini is already awakened. It just needs to be directed, and we need to clear out our channel so that we can direct it in a way that's effective. Because if the Kundalini is working through us without direction, it can become destructive. It can become, because you're all powerful. You're all really powerful people. Everyone has power, immense power to create. We all have the power to create. And when that power is rarefied and is aligned with our creator, the divine one, the one that is beyond our ego, all of a sudden our actions are more, what could you say, like effective with the purpose of all. Because as above, so below. As below, so above. And so it's they're like there's so much juice in these philosophies, specifically embedded in Tantra, because it was really about, all right, what are we doing here? What is the point of all this? And how do we manifest our highest aspiration? And something my teacher's teacher told me once that I found so profound is he said, this is Kapilnath, he said, even if all knowledge was lost, we would still be able to figure out everything that was needed to be known. Because you could just sit and you could observe and everything would become self-evident. And that is, we're working backwards from our own ignorance, basically, as humans. We're undoing the glue that society has stuck in our minds, and we're trying to, like, in some way reorient to what is natural and is a natural way of living. And so the Tantra and the way of life that Tantra was proposing was really, what's the best way to live life? It's quite simple. What's the best way to live life? How do we conduct ourselves? How do we behave? What do we worship? What practices do we do? What's the best way to live? And it was an inquiry that went on for centuries and is still going on today. They came up with their suggestions, but as you can see, number one, everything is an experiment. Everything is an experiment. Create your own. What is the result? The beauty is that we have 1,000+ years of practices and methods and suggestions of people who created their experiments, and they're like, this is what I did, this is what I found out, here you go. And they passed us the family recipe. And then we get the family recipe, and then we go, all right, they said this is what I'm feeling. And then we create our own experiment from that, and then we add a sort of amendment to it, and then it innovates and it grows. And therefore it's just an ongoing evolutionary process of refinement. The idea that the body is a vehicle for liberation is also a really profound concept. That your body has all the codes. They're not in a book somewhere. This is filled with divine energy and blueprints for everything that we need to know. And so they devised all of these methods of going into the body, because, like, you realize if you were given an iPhone 100 and you were at a flip phone, a Nokia flip phone, and someone's just like, I got the newest iPhone, here you go. You'd be like, it would take you a long time to figure out how to use the thing, I think. Well, your body is a millions of years old biocomputer that no one gave you the instruction manual for. And we're just over bumbling through the dark and trying to figure it out. It's like, how many times have you thought about how you see something? You just take for granted, oh yeah, I see stuff. Have you even, I'm just speaking for myself. When I actually contemplate sight, it blows my mind, or hearing, or touch. I'm like, what's happening? First of all, what is sensation? Like, what took place to make me know that my finger, and how am I even, like, what are we doing? And we just go and live our life, and we're like, yeah, I got this body, and like, I kind of take care of it, and it's just like, and in a tantrika, a practitioner of tantra is a tantrika, is like, whoa. If you really take care of your body, everything takes care of you. Because your body is completely and inseparably linked to nature. If you take care of your body, the body takes care of you. It's falling in love with nature through yourself. And it's not a process of like, oh, we have to go clean the oceans, and yes, that too. And this needs to be right. This is the temple. This is where worship happens. And keeping our temple clean and pure and joyous and happy, so that the divine wants to come and live with us. I always say, when you're breathing, breathe in a way that invites the guest in. Like the breath is a visitor. And you're trying to make your house nice for the visitor. Right? You're getting the windows open, getting the breeze in, making a nice scent in there, having a beautiful picture on the wall. That's your inner body. And if you're breathing in a way that you want that guest to get out as soon as possible, you think the guest doesn't want to visit you again? I mean, it's going to have to. It's going to come knocking because you're alive. But, breathe in a way that allows the breath, the body and the breath are in this amazing, inseparable love affair. It is a beautiful love affair between the breath and the body. And so breathing pranayama in a way that's body honoring, kind of like we were doing this morning, is a deeply tantric practice. Learning how to worship with your body, with your breath. Like truly honoring. Because when you truly honor yourself, everything else is touched by that. They also talk about the supremacy of the guru. I'm still in inquiry about that. Not because I don't, I 100% believe in the human guru, and I personally don't have a human guru per se. I have my teachers, who I view as my masters, or masters of mine. And they made a big deal out of the guru, and I'm always like in the inquiry about what that means. And what I've come to this is my own conclusion, other people might have their own opinion, is that the word guru in Sanskrit means the dispeller of darkness. It means gu, ru. From dark, gu, to light, ru. It is that which brings light in dark places. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Does everyone feel like there's a part of them that assists them in awakening? Mm-hmm. Like there's a flame inside, right? That, to me, is the guru. It's not easy to always listen to that thing, right? It's sometimes quite hard. Sometimes you listen, you hear it, but you don't listen. The guru, in learning the supremacy of the guru, is learning how to adjust ourselves so that we can actually be in alignment with that voice, that whisper, that sense, more often with less resistance, so that we can hear and feel and receive that voice and work with it. Supremacy of the guru. That way we're not pulled by other voices, but there's that one voice that knows. It's the part of you that's the knower. They also talk about the importance of initiation. My conclusion on initiation is that there is value in initiation for reasons that I won't get into specifically right now. But the process of initiation is the process of acknowledging that the old you is no longer who the new you is. That you are crossing a threshold, and there is a distinct changeover into the new reality that you're entering into. And that is a very important process for spiritual transformation. In fact, all of you are going through an initiation by coming here. You've crossed a threshold, you are entering into the unknown, which is what initiation represents, and you're going through a series of trials that are meant to test you and take you beyond the edge of your old self so that you can discover a new you on the other side and claim that as who you are now, and then you bring that out into the world. Importance of initiation. They also talk about the efficacy of ritual and mantra for magical purposes. Now, I specifically wrote magic with a K. That was you, Tracy?
I was thinking it.
Yeah. Someone was like, why do you spell it with a K? Magic with a K is a different thing than magic with just the C. Magic with the C can be understood as like card tricks. This is not card tricks. We're dealing with fundamental cosmic forces, and we are attempting to align with those forces so that we can give them our power, so that they can give us their power, so that we can do something good with it. And the idea is that we align with pure intention with these forces to actually bring light and transformation to this. And so the ritual process is a consecrated space of stepping out of the ordinary reality and into an extraordinary reality where we can interact with forces that are not in our daily life, and we can do some sort of process, a spiritual process, and interacting with those forces in order to conclude that ritual and come back out into the ordinary world and have something to share and something to give. And a ritual, you can do a ritual for anything. There's a process of ritual, which is also a discussion for a little bit later. But basically, in Tantra, they emphasize ritual because a lot of what Tantra had to do was honoring and propitiating deities. And to them, a deity was an archetypal force. It wasn't some god or goddess out there in the distance. It was an archetypal force, remember, as above, so below, that existed inside of them. What an example of that would be courage. Courage is an archetypal force. And so what Tantra did is they personified courage. You all know what personification is, right? To put the quality on a thing, like Ganesha over here, or Hanuman is a great example. They personified courage as the deity so that they could call to the courage that was in them to bring forth that quality and make it manifest. And it's like, oh, I know that there's a courageous one in me. He doesn't always act courageous. In fact, sometimes he's quite scared and courage just slips out the door and I completely forget that I'm plugged in to the divine current of courage. And then I act according to my fear. Has that ever happened to anybody? And so in a tantric ritual, what you might do, or what perhaps they did, was they made a sculpture or a murti that like Durga, for example, the freaking fierce goddess of courage and fierce love and badassery. And they brought her flowers. They played house, basically. You ever play like House or G.I. Joe when you were a kid? Or it was like, and they played it so sincerely that they made it real. Because when you make your reality real, it changes the chemistry in your body. And so you can make a ritual designed for a specific purpose where you are aligning with a particular energy, bring flowers, light incense, play house with your higher self, basically. Honor that and ask for its favor. It's like, I did it multiple times for this training. I would set up my altar. I had all your guys' names on a sticky note. I was like, all right, how do I make this as the best it could possibly be? And I brought all of my juice and good energy to that ritual, and I was just praying and just like, God, like, help. Like, there's 16 people coming for 3 weeks. I'm like, I think I know a little bit, but like, is there anything I need to know? And I would offer flowers and I would offer beautiful things. And I would really sincerely ask from the beyond, from the ritual space, the extraordinary space, for insight, for inspiration, for assistance. Because my limited ego is limited. It's limited. It's not capable it's certainly not capable of this. There's something moving through me to allow this to happen. And you all know that also because it happens in your life. Greatness is achieved by submitting the ego to that which is beyond. If you see someone who is grandiose, there's a different story involved. Grandiosity is the process of ego gaining power without spiritual wisdom. Grandiosity, because grandiosity is going to lead to a big fall down the road. Emphasis on mantras. Tantra made mantra a big deal. Mantra is amazing. Mantra is like a sonic formula to align our energy in a specific way with a particular pattern, to turn away from the ordinary thinking mind and to place our attention on that which is divine. A mantra is an instrument to channel the mind, to channel our awareness. If you look on the following page where it says mantra, the subtle science of sound and vibration, as I said the other day, Dr. Svoboda, some of you may know, says mantra does not mean something, it is something. They are inherently different. And so in Tantra, there's an emphasis on the process of, because in the Vedic culture, they chanted long hymns, long lines of code, and in Tantra it was more of the bija mantras, honoring the deity in a simple short mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, that sort of thing where it's just you and the thing. And you're just doing it over and over and over again, and offering and offering and offering and offloading the gunk that is preventing us from perceiving that in the first place. Because it's like, okay, I'm doing a ritual on courage. I'm trying to invite in courage. And then I get into my ritual process and in comes a little gremlin. And I'm like, okay, I see you there. Do I put my attention on that? Or do I just turn back to the goal? And this is the story of Daniel in the lion's den. If some of you are familiar with this biblical story. Daniel was thrown in the lion's den. The lions were trying to eat him. He turned his back on that which was trying to destroy him and looked towards the single shaft of light that was his only possibility for being saved. And so this kind of explains this idea a little bit. So the principles of Tantra, everything is an experiment. It's an experiment. Number 2, there's the dynamic between containment and the life force, the expansion, the spanda, which is the heart of process of birth of transformation. Containment, tapas, is the withdrawal of our attention inward until a process can be completed. If we start to get a little energy and then it just goes back out, and we get a little energy and it goes back out, the percolation never really happens. It's slower. And so learning how to absorb and contain and focus our energy for long enough so that something can unwind, that is tapas. Holding until pop. And so there's this process happening a lot. Like as in Hatha Yoga. Also, we talk about the human being of dual nature, masculine and feminine. We talked about that. We also talked about how there's various realities, the normal world being the least real. We talked about that. And again, this is just based on Rudy Ballantyne's work. I grabbed it because I really particularly appreciated it. Also, the marriage of the ascending current with the descending, another beautiful visual. And then finally, two more, the perspective on the path of Tantra and how the rise of Kundalini is activating the chakras. The last one is just so awesome. Pleasure is the heart of the tantric path. And it's not like hedonism, right? Hedonism is a different thing entirely. And unfortunately in our culture, there's a tendency towards hedonism. There's a tendency towards self-gratification. There's a tendency towards self-satisfying in not a good way, because there's a place to self-satisfy, and delicious food is delicious and sex is awesome, and we should appreciate the finer things in life. And if those things are part of our ego's strategy to feel good, it's not an enlightenment. It's actually trapping us in the cycle of samskara samsara even further. And we're trying to escape that. We're not trying to reinforce our addictions and attachments. We're trying to escape them and transcend them. Because once we transcend them, chocolate is so much more delicious when you don't need it. Right? And when you don't need the orgasm, you can take time in the process of making love. Unfortunately, we're driven by animal impulses that are like, transcending that is a tantric practice. Working with that energy, moving it through the system so that we can actually truly be present and not be grabbing. So that's Tantra.